Hi, it's Mark from Top Local Lead Generation. We're here with Bernie Pawlik. Pawlik Automotive in Vancouver, Vancouver's best auto service experience. And that they can back that up, that claim. They're 16-time winners of best auto repair in Vancouver as voted by their clients. How you doing, Bernie?
I'm doing very well.
So we're going to talk about a Porsche Boxster. There was some sort of bearing failure or replacement you did. What's going on? Sounds pretty serious.
Well, it is. So the intermediate shaft bearing on this Boxster failed, which is a common issue on many of these early 2000, mid 2000 Porsche engines. Yes, so yeah, definitely a very serious issue.
So what's an IMS bearing?
Yeah, the IMS bearing stands for intermediate shaft, and this is a very very common failure on this vehicle. The intermediate shaft basically is as the name implies, it's intermediate between the crankshaft and the camshaft. So there's a chain that drives the intermediate shaft, and that in turn drives the camshaft timing chains.
Wow, so that failure internally in the engine, does that require or necessitate a full engine overhaul?
Well, generally, yes. Once the bearing fails, it generally does. This particular customer was lucky in that the bearing started making a squeaky noise and did not completely fail. This is the bearing still intact, although it did wear to the point of putting a few metal particles into the engine, but very minimal. I mean, they do fail to the point of, you know, the bearing completely blows apart. I don't have any pictures to show you of that, but if you look on the internet, you'll see some really nice photos of these bearings where they completely fail. And of course, at that point, I mean, it's game over for the rest of the engine. So that's, you know, so these folks were lucky the bearing started making a squeaking sound before it completely failed.
So if you had a whole bunch of debris in the motor, how long is your engine going to last with that running around inside there?
Well, it's kind of difficult to say. I mean, from what we could see, there's very minimal amount, but it's never a good thing for the engine, you know, and at this point, but it seems to run fine. So we've left it, you know, but I've given the owner a warning that, you know, you never know how, you know, what sort of endurance you've got left in it. You know, basically the, you know, replacing this bearing, it's always important to do it before it fails. That's kind of the key.
So do you think it's a good idea to change this bearing as a regular service item, a maintenance item?
Absolutely. I mean, that's the key issue. It's really important to replace it. I mean, they're probably good for, you know, 75,000 kilometers. There's various, you know, opinions on it. That's about, seems to be about the sort of average. Well, you were asking, you know, is it wise to do this as a maintenance item? And yes, it absolutely is. I mean, anytime a clutch wears out on one of these vehicles, it's important to do the intermediate shaft bearing. It does add a substantial, losing my words here. It does add a substantial cost, but the cost of replacing an engine on this vehicle is horrific. You know, and on a 2000 Boxster, the vehicle is actually very good value. They're not very expensive, but, you know, a complete engine job in one of these vehicles is worth more than the whole vehicle. So you really want to make sure you do your maintenance and replace this. Now, if your vehicle is an automatic, you just want to automatically remove the transmission at a certain point and replace the IMS bearing. It's like a maintenance item, like a timing belt. You would change it at a certain interval. The IMS bearing is the same thing. So there's our bearing. If you look where I've got this pointer here, you can see a few metal filings and bits and pieces. That is metal that's actually leaked out of the, you know, bits that leaked out of the bearing. So that's not a good sign. But the bearing and seal are intact, so just a very minimal amount of debris left this bearing. This is a photograph of the opening, the back of the engine where the bearing sits, and that's with the bearing pulled out of the engine. So the new one is pressed in. We buy them from a company called LN Engineering. They've developed an amazing product where you can replace this bearing, because from Porsche it's not available as a separate replacement piece. So those are some of our photos.
And just show the car again.
Yeah, there's an example. Let's say it's a 2000 Boxster. It's an example of a vehicle that has an IMS bearing in it.
So which models and years does this affect?
Definitely from 99 up to the late 2000 model year in 911s and Boxsters. And the only thing, you know, up until about, I don't have my years exactly correct, up until around 2006, you can put these replacement kits in. But after that, you've actually got to disassemble the engine to replace the IMS bearing. And after around the 09 model year, they stopped using it altogether, which is a good thing. So anything earlier.
This must affect Caymans as well then.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, yeah, certainly it does. Yeah, yeah. So you know, it's important to check again if you own a Porsche, you know, check with your mechanic. Find out which model year it is. Find out whether you have an IMS bearing, and really, it's important to know whether it's ever been changed. If it hasn't been, it's worth looking into doing.
So, are there any other stupidly engineered engine parts in horizontally opposed Porsches? I guess this really applies to mid-end and rear-engine Porsches.
It does, yeah. There's nothing like this found in the front engine or the V8 models. You know, off the top of my head, I can't think of anything else. I mean, this is really you know, for such an amazing car, that's really a kind of a dumb piece of engineering on their behalf. But yeah, there's nothing else that's really that, you know, that's so key and critical. As I say, it's like a timing belt on an engine. I mean, you just need to replace it at the right interval, you know, or you risk, you know, blowing your engine. So in this case, it's much more expensive than even, you know, breaking a timing belt. So if you own one of these cars, make sure you either replace the IMS bearing or you know that it's been replaced in the recent future. And it's a maintenance item. You have to do it.
So if you're looking for a reliable place to look after your Porsche or any other vehicle, pretty much they do it at Pawlik Automotive in Vancouver. Give them a call, 604-327-7112 to book your appointment, or check out their website, pawlikautomotive.com. We have years worth of videos and blog posts and all kinds of interesting information on there. Thanks, Bernie.
You're welcome, Mark.